Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Alexander Te Mauna Ruruho. Ko Huranui Te Awa Tata kia tōku nāko. No Waikari aho. Ko Fox toko whānau. Ko Wendy toko ingoa. Ko te whare wānanga o Waikato tuku wahi mahi. He pūkina mātua hangaro aho. No reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hello, everybody. I'm Wendy Fox-Turnbull. I'm currently working at the University of Waikato, and I'm delighted to be part of the 30th anniversary of TENZ. So happy birthday, TENZ. I'm delighted to see you so strong and being such a strong advocate for technology education. It's just wonderful. And thank you for having me.
Well, ka pai, tēnā koe Wendy, and thank you so much for sharing your mihi with us and for being with us today. And the purpose of this interview is to explore, or conversation really, is to explore your role within TENZ over the years. And so we could start with your memories of the development of TENZ.
Yep. So I first became aware of TENZ in 1997. At that stage, I was appointed as a facilitator for one of the Ministry of Education professional development contracts. And I was working with Paul Rodley and Dave Sim, who were coordinating some of those contracts in the South Island. Dave was a principal at one of the local, deputy principal at one of the local high schools, and Paul was a lecturer at what was then the Christchurch College of Education. So I got my office at the Christchurch College of Education, and he was on the organising committee of the 1997 first inaugural TENZ conference. So, of course, me being a newbie, I was told that I was on the conference committee and that I was helping. So I said, yes, that's fine. And so I first joined the TENZ then. We had TENZ International, but we also had TENZ in each of the regions. So I joined TENZ Canterbury, and we had monthly meetings and organised that 1997 conference, which I think was in around October. And I joined that team in April. At that time, that was about the same time that I met Alistair Jones, Glenn McGregor, and they were on the trust board. So I knew that TENZ was a trust board, and it was set up with those two main drivers to establish technology as a learning area in New Zealand, and very much to support that establishment. So that went on. I continued to be, even after the conference went really well, we had great attendance. It was very exciting. I went on to be in TENZ Canterbury, and I think I chaired that for a couple of years. And at one stage, I was at the conference in Hamilton, and to be honest, I can't remember what year that was, one of the TENZ conferences. So 99 was in Auckland, 2001 Wellington, so it must have been 2003, or I can't remember when I started. Alistair approached me at that conference and asked if I would consider chairing TENZ, the subject association. So there was a kind of a move away. So the trust board really wanted to remain. The trust board remained, but it was setting up an actual subject association underneath that. And so I became the first chair of that. Yeah, so that was really my early recollections. We had conferences every second year. We always used to really look forward to those, but most of the work that we did was in regions. So each of the regions, and some regions were stronger than others, as was always the case, but we would have monthly meetings, we would plan visits, we would have speakers, yeah, mainly for those local teachers. Yeah.
That sounds lovely. And I pulled up the conference page to have a quick check. And you're absolutely right. That was the 2003 conference in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And then 2005 was your first as chair in Christchurch.
Yes. Yes.
Very cool. And I'm loving hearing about how active the regions were. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the regions
Yes,
work?
I think that's how it started, because I don't know if Alistair referred to the professional development, but initially there were 15 people chosen to train as facilitators of the professional development. And then they went out into their regions, and then the following year another 15, first 15, second 15 were trained and went out. And they went out into their region. So it became very much a regional thing, I think. And that's where Paul and Dave kind of joined TENZ as part of that TENZ Canterbury. The other person who was involved in that, who did some of the designing of some of the conference stuff, was a man called Tony Mander. Tony, he was very active in the TENZ Canterbury scene and helped also with that conference. I'm not sure if that's answered your question.
Oh, no, it has. And so, well, actually, I will add a little tiny bit to that question then. So it was very active due to kind of a little bit of the ways in which the
yes.
curriculum was
Yeah.
being implemented.
Yeah. And then when I became chair, I do, yes, right. When I became chair, I thought we needed to be very clear about the regions. And so in partnership with IPENZ, which is now Engineering New Zealand, we identified their regions, and we used their regions as the same as our regions. So we divided New Zealand up into, there were two in the South Island, North and South, North Island, North South Island, South Island, and then there was the Wellington region, there was the Central region, there was the Northern region, and there was the Waikato Bay of Plenty region.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so New Zealand was kind of divided into those. And then each of the chairs of each of those regions had a seat on the teaching council.
Okay. Okay, so it was that's awesome. Okay. And if we kind of go to a slightly aligned kaupapa, the TESAC, being an umbrella of the technology associations, I'd love to know a little bit about your role in the establishment and.
Yep. So when I was chair, in the very early days when digital was just taking a lady, I can't remember her name, she was well known. Anyway, she approached me around subject associations. She was very keen to establish something for the digital technology teachers. And I suggested to her at the time that they combine with TENZ, but they wanted to be their own thing. And they were NZAC DIT, I think, which was the New Zealand, they became the New Zealand Subject Association of Digital and Information Technology Teachers. They're now digital technology teachers, I think. Yeah. Anyway, so they were just establishing, and I had quite a few conversations with this lady, and I realized that we all wanted the same thing. In that we really wanted to promote technology education. I was also in quite close contact with the NZ GATA person who at the time was also from Canterbury, and oh no, he was from Otago, but I had sort of met them, and the home economics, the other subject association that involved technology teachers was TENZ, obviously. And each of those were originally started with graphics and home economics, but brought in technology teachers. And personally, I felt that there was lots of us doing all the same thing and wanting the same thing. And in terms of the technology, I just thought that we would be a stronger voice in terms of advocacy if we were together. So John Crichton, no, not John, like I can't remember the names, sorry. anyway, I asked the chair of GETA and John Crichton, who was the chair of the NZAC DIP at that stage, if they would consider kind of meeting maybe regularly once a term. We brought in the head hands, and so we started having, I think the first 2 meetings were actually at my house on a Saturday morning, and we just thought about, we really focused on what we had in common and what we wanted to advocate for in terms of technology. I think the TENZ always had a point of difference because we didn't specialise in any one of the areas, and we didn't specialise in primary or secondary. We were very much across both, all 3 sectors. So we were the kind of the holistic advocator for technology, and then the subject, and I kind of agreed that then the other subject associations would advocate for their specific aspects of it. I was told recently that TENZ was primary and the others were secondary, and that was actually never ever the intention. TENZ is not just primary, it's always been all of technology. So I was quite interested to hear that from somebody. And so anyway, we started off being some long acronym that was, I can't remember what it was, but then we decided that we needed a name. So TESAC was the Technology Education Subject Association Coalition, was born after we'd been going for about maybe three years. And then we ran a competition amongst school children to design our logo, and chose the logo that we currently have. And then we continued to meet throughout my chair, and perhaps maybe once a year, less regularly towards the end. But we did try a TESAC conference, and Adrian Reeves coordinated that in Wellington. And I actually thought it went quite well, but I think one of the things that we didn't do very well was give a space to the research. And so I still think I like the idea of the TESAC conference being for technology, but we do have to make it practitioner and theory based. That was kind of the feedback from that. But the following year, Head Hands wanted their own conference because it was their anniversary, a big anniversary for them, which was fine. And then we've just gone back to our own ones. But I think the idea is still there, even if it's once every 4 or 5 years, to have a TESAC conference. But that was my vision. So for advocacy, that we could all advocate with the one voice rather than all of our separate voices. So that's TESAC.
Awesome. And I mean, are there any examples of the advocacy that you could share with us?
I have to look at my records. I wrote a lot of letters. I think ultimately the digital technologies was probably a strong one. So we were working not against, but a very strong advocacy group from Computers New Zealand who wanted computing to be completely separate from technology. And as a TESAC representative, we definitely lobbied the government in terms of keeping digital technologies within the technology curriculum, because it was about designing and developing digital outcomes. And so we had to work very hard with that. We worked with Tim Bell at that stage to ensure that we had his voice on board. We worked with the regions, we worked with a lot of the letters I wrote. I would often write as from TESAC in terms of the curriculum advocacy, the 2007 curriculum, way back then. And then again with the digital rewrite in the 2017. So there was quite a lot going on in that space. There were other various letters that I wrote to. There's one at some stage I wrote to the letter to the editor about what technology is, misunderstandings about technology out there, particularly with our parent body. So we wrote letters around that. Sorry, I'm just...
No, well, sorry, that was a surprise question.
A wee while ago. Yeah.
I mean, we could move from there into your wider role supporting technology education, because I mean, over the years you've been a mentor to me too, and yeah.
Yeah, well, my journey into technology, because I started off as a primary school teacher as opposed to a teaching specialist in one of the areas, which a lot of other people who are in TENZ had come from that background. My background was primary, and when technology was first introduced, I quickly learned that it was a way of reaching some of our learners who are under, how can I explain it? Who aren't well serviced in the current education system. And I'm talking about, and there's now the neurodiverse students, but when we started, neurodiverse wasn't even a word, it didn't exist. They were just the dumb kids, and the dumb kids were stuck in the workshops. And if you only need to look at school plans, the metal room and the woodwork room were stuck down by the boiler. You know, it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. It was the dumb kids who went and did those subjects, and the bright kids did physics and maths. And I quickly learned that technology, especially at the intermediate level, really enabled some of those diverse thinkers who perhaps had trouble reading, but were very far from being dumb, were really creative thinkers and could think outside the box and really thrive in a learning area where there's no right or wrong answers, where yet is the most powerful word. I love that yet. Okay, this is, I can't do this yet, I would add, or this is wrong at the moment, or no, I haven't got this right yet. There's always that idea that there's more to do, more to learn, and it's not a sense of failure, but it's a sense of just being not there, not quite there. And I really, really loved that. I saw these kids blossom and beam and get kudos from their classmates who probably didn't even look at them. But when they could make something that was pretty amazing or design something that was pretty amazing, the others, the good, good readers and whatever, they looked at these kids in a different light. And to me, that was just priceless, actually. I think it probably comes from my background of having dyslexia, not formally diagnosed, but it runs in the family, and my granddaughter has now been diagnosed, so we know it's there. And just that feeling of when you're not reading as fast as you should, you're dumb. But actually, you're a really critical thinker. And when you see some of the wonderful student technologists, they can design things that are in their head. That it's incredible. So that was kind of, I got hooked. When technology first came out. Well, actually, I got a job teaching technology because they wanted somebody at a school, in a technology centre. They wanted somebody who had skills across the primary sector, and they gave me the opportunity to learn about technology, so I was really lucky. And then obviously I became a facilitator on one of those contracts, and then I ended up being a lecturer at Canterbury. And that was when we were just introducing, at the Christchurch College of Ed, so I was then, we were introducing technology into the initial teacher education programs for the first time. So I was involved with Fiona Haynes, who was my colleague at the time, and we were writing a lot of the courses and the programs for the ITE sector at Canterbury, at Christchurch College of Ed. We ran a distance program, and we ran our face-to-face. We ran graduate programs and bachelor's programs. At some stage, the Ministry of Education bought quite a lot of money. It was around the 2009 to 13, and from gift funding came in, and the this has been really fundamental to help technology in New Zealand, I think. All the initial teacher educators, we were able to meet maybe twice a year, brought to Wellington. Some of those were in service, some of them were pre-service, and this is where Vicky and Cliff came in, and then later Jeff and Neil Dinning, they were all involved in that. they would bring the pre-service and educators together for a day. Then both groups would be there for a day, and then the in-service would stay for a third day. And what that did over a period of 3 or 4 years, it really established us as a community. And out of that, 6 of us from one educator from each of the universities got together and basically researched and discussed what it was that we felt was fundamental for initial teacher education. And out of that came the PETA framework, which is the pre-service technology teacher framework. And that still underpins, I know, the program that I did at Canterbury. It underpins the program that we run here at Waikato. It underpinned the textbook that I wrote. It's just that idea that if teachers, for people who are teaching, they need to understand what technology is. They need to understand the rationale of having technology in the curriculum, what it does, why it's important for our students. They need to be able to understand the curriculum and the theory behind the curriculum and what it means, and then they need to be able to implement the curriculum. And all of those 4 things, we call those the 4 pillars, which are necessary for initial teacher educators to have to be able to then go out into schools and teach. And so therefore teachers need those 4 pillars. And they've actually stood the test of time, because I do think that that most of us are still using them, or maybe not bringing it to the front necessarily, but it kind of underpins how our programs are planned. So that was really cool. That was exciting to be part of that PETA paper, and we presented that at TENZ too. At one stage, I think Mike Forrest and I went over and did that for everybody else. So that's really where I've come to, just really advocated for technology to be in the curriculum, to be a strong part of initial teacher education. When the University of Canterbury and the University of Auckland and the University of Otago gathered their colleges of education, we were very much pressed for time that we had with our student teachers, because a whole lot of other things came on that were necessary from a university. And I know TENZ and TESAC were very active and really advocating for time in keeping technology as a separate subject in those ITE programs. And I think all of us in the 6 universities anyway who do initial teacher education have struggled with this issue of lack of teacher education time. And that probably today is still my biggest concern, because I think if we don't give our teachers a really strong base, primary or secondary, we're not setting them up for success and their students up for success. Sorry, I've spoken way too long.
No such thing as speaking for way too long. That was
just so important. It really annoys me when people only think of intelligence as something that goes on in the mind.
Yes.
I get very frustrated. Intelligence is a combination of physical, of manual, of social. There's just so many aspects to intelligence. It's not just what goes on in the head.
And anybody listening, I think actually the only thing that would be good to clarify from your conversation for our listeners who may not have heard the acronym before, GIF funding. What is that?
Oh, that was the Growth and Innovative
Fund, wasn't it?
Growth and Innovation Fund. And it was 50% the Ministry of Education and 50% the Ministry of Economic Growth, or whatever the ministry of that was then. Yeah.
I think it's Primary Industries now, is that?
Well, Primary Industries it is now, yeah. And we had about 13 million. It was a lot of money. And that was really, I think, absolutely critical for developing ourselves as a community. So, you know, we've mentioned different names, and all of those people I've kind of met through either TENZ or through that network. Yeah.
Okay, and that does your conversation does bring us quite nicely around to the development of technology education in New Zealand, and just maybe sharing a few of your thoughts about the original philosophy and purpose of technology education in Aotearoa.
The the philosophy behind technology is that that it's very much holistic, that it's about intervening in the world by design. And underpinning that, and we look at a number of different models, but underpinning that is that all technology is created for people, by people, for people. And the for people is really critical. The understanding that we don't want our kids just going out and making stuff for the sake of making it. We want them to understand that they are doing it purposefully, that they have a real need or opportunity in mind. They have a client, whether it's formal or informal. They'll have a range of stakeholders. And what they're designing and developing will make a difference. So they have to think about the cultural implications of their designs for their intended users. And they also have to think about the cultural implications of their design on the environment and on themselves. So if I was a clothing designer, I'll give an example as a clothing designer, and I was designing clothes for a particular group of people, then I'm obviously going to ask them about the clothing that they like, the designs that they like, the colors that they wear. So I'm going to meet their needs. It's going to be quite purposeful. But also I'm going to think about my own ethics and think, well, I'm just going to use either recycled fabrics, or I'm going to make sure that go and visit or do whatever I have to do to make sure that the fabrics that I get are ethically produced. And I want to make sure that the fabrics that I get are environmentally friendly. So on the other side of that, if I was a clothing designer, I also have to behave in an ethical and moral way for myself. So going back to that clothing example, I would be sourcing fabric from countries who treat their workers appropriately. I would be using recycled fabrics. I would be looking at what impact that fabric has on the environment, whether it's in its production or in its waste. So when one of the things that we want our students to understand is that they're not just making stuff for the sake of making it, that it's all culturally situated, and that they have to think about ethics and values, their own and of their community for which they are designing and developing. The nature of technology is something that is very, very well received in other countries. A New Zealand technology curriculum has been a world leader, and it's often referred to as a world leader. And the part of that curriculum that has made it the world leader, that's different to other countries, is the strong emphasis we have on the nature of technology, that technology is for people, that technology has influences and impacts on society and on culture. And that is what other countries tell us that they think is missing from their own curriculum, and what they're quite envious of New Zealand is having that. That goes back to kind of my research that I've put around authenticity. A lot of my research in technology has been around that authenticity. If students know what they're doing and why they're doing it, there's a real purpose for it. It's much more motivational than they're doing it because they have to, or they're learning it because they have to. They can see that they're making a difference. They are behaving as technologists. They're undertaking technology practice. So yeah, that authenticity and the nature of technology are really critical, I think.
Okay, thank you so much. And that kind of leads me naturally to a question about our brand new draft that's out there. What about the place for nature of technology in knowledge-rich curriculum?
Well, I've read the draft quite thoroughly, and I understand where it's come from, but I'm deeply disappointed that the nature of technology and the knowledge of technological practice has disappeared. So we're told that this is a knowledge-rich curriculum, but the unique knowledge of technology was how to design and make. So that idea that you plan your practice, that you have to think about the resources, you have to think about the ethics, you have to think about the time that's involved, and you have to plan your practice. The fact that that you have a brief and what a brief is and how that you're adding to the brief because you're doing research. I'm finding, particularly in the primary sector, that's completely missing. And by primary, I mean up to the end of year 8. I'm feeling that that's not very strong. It looks to me like the knowledge rich has gone to examples of technology rather than knowledge of technology practice. I think that's probably it in a nutshell. So the curriculum says that the students have to design and make stuff, but they're not actually telling you in depth and teaching you the progressions of actually how to do that. I think that that's something that's really missing. I worry that in primary school, kids will just make stuff out of cardboard. I hope that that's not true. I hope that still foods, resistant materials, textiles, digital outcomes are still created. Maybe for teachers who are currently doing that, that may continue. But I think about my teacher education students, and they won't have that background knowledge. They won't find that in the curriculum. They're being guided by that curriculum. So I do appreciate that lots of people have put lots of time and effort into it, and I do appreciate that they have had constraints. But I think that it's still got a wee way to go.
Ka pai. Well, I mean, if we can apply the hangaro or the technology process in terms of our curriculum development, then we have the potential to move to a good place.
Yes, yes. And that's what's missing, is that the knowledge of practice. The knowledge of practice. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, when I had a conversation with Alistair not long ago and mentioned that I was going to be speaking with you and Vicky Compton and with others. And I asked if he might have a message to pass on. Oh, he mentioned you do work in the same institution. I am aware of that at Waikato. But he did mention that it's about reflecting on influence. It's about thinking about what made an impact in the past, and that could guide future directions. So I thank you for your reflections today. They have been very helpful. I'm wondering if there's a message back to Alistair or Vicky, or if there is any response to that.
Well, clearly Vicky and Alistair and Vicky were fundamental in the development of the New Zealand curriculum, and I really appreciate that the effort and the advocacy they have put into it to get it to where it was. I really liked the work with the 2007 curriculum that Vicky did, as it was based on research and based on fact and based on finding, and she was very much fundamental in actually identifying what that knowledge that we need to teach is. And I would like that to be remembered, I guess, taking forward, and somehow still informed that a lot of very valuable research that she and her team did is still relevant. It can still be used today. I think it's really important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Tēnā koe, Wendy. Ngā mihi nui kia koe i tēnei ata. Mai rā no. You've been a strong advocate for technology and continue to be so. So for that, TENZ, we acknowledge you and we thank you for your time.
Thanks very